Outcasted OC. Viewer discretion is advised. Incoming transmission in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's going on, guys? It's Courtney here from the Outcasted OC podcast, and welcome to the Monday Night Raw recap. Let's not waste any time. There's a lot to talk about considering this is the go-home episode of Monday Night Raw before the Royal Rumble, so let's just jump straight into my thoughts. So Monday Night Raw this week kicked off with us seeing that CM Punk and Cody Rhodes are both walking into the arena backstage. Now, this is built up because they are going to have a confrontation. They are going to be having a moment later on in the evening where they meet face to face to talk about what's going to happen at the Royal Rumble. But before that, Seth frickin' Rollins kicks off Monday Night Raw to address his future within WWE. Now, for those of you who don't know, Seth Rollins unfortunately did sustain an injury last week in his match against Jinder Mahal. He unfortunately did some damage to his knee, which he talks about when he's addressing Monday Night Raw and addressing the WWE Universe. So he comes out to the ring and you can tell straight away he is not his jovial, happy self. He's not bopping around, he's not dancing, he's not singing his song, he's not waving his arms, none of that. And to see that compared to what we normally get to see from Seth Rollins was quite jarring and also quite upsetting. For myself, I'm being 100% honest in my thoughts when I am talking about this here. I cried during the segment and I could feel myself getting emotional now, and I'm trying not to, but I think just seeing anybody injured is never okay. It never sits right with me when someone's injured. Doesn't matter if they are an athlete or not. I feel as though people getting injured is never fun. And Seth Rollins is not an exception to the rule. He's my favourite wrestler of all time, as you guys have come to know from obviously being on the podcast. I talk about him all the time. And more or less just from a personal standpoint as well too, like I'm really hoping he's okay. It doesn't matter so much if he can wrestle for me, it's more about him and his life and how he lives it. So yeah, my best wishes go out to Seth Rollins and his recovery. But anyway, he comes out and he welcomes everybody to Monday Night Raw, and he takes off his glasses and everybody's chanting like, "Thank you, Seth," and you can tell that it's taken him back and he's quite emotional and he really struggles to kind of get the words out of his mouth for the first 2 minutes of him coming out to the ring. He's just standing there taking it all in, and that's when I started to bawl my eyes out, because you could tell that he was upset. It wasn't him pretending. You could tell he genuinely was taken aback by the response from the crowd, and also you could just tell that it wasn't a good message he was going to be giving. Normally he's happy and joyful, and I feel we got to see a really different side of Seth Rollins, which we never really get to see very often, so it's quite hard to see. Anyway, he expresses that it's been a long week, and he mentions the match last week and talks about how his knee injury happened, and he talked about how he did it off a moonsault and his knee went in the wrong way, like it shouldn't go in that way, and he knows because he's had knee problems before. He mentioned that he may be out for a long time, and obviously the crowd was not super happy about that. He mentions how within his World Heavyweight Championship title reign, he's felt as though each time he defends it, he's been getting stronger and stronger. But when he was sitting at the back and he couldn't bend his knee, he felt like he was lying. He felt like he wasn't living up to the standard that he expects for himself. And he felt as though that he may be in a position where he has to miss WrestleMania, which would really suck. WrestleMania doesn't feel like WrestleMania without Seth Rollins. Same as SummerSlam. SummerSlam doesn't feel that like the same without Seth Rollins. He has been in a position on the card in different areas where he has not actually technically main evented a WrestleMania, and if he is going to be the World Heavyweight Champion, he needs to have that moment, not only for the championship to be solidified as like a legitimate title, but also for him as well. I feel like that's something he really wants to tick off his bucket list. He mentions that he has a grade 2 tear in his MCL and he has torn his meniscus. Doctors have said that if he is going to get surgery, he will be out for 3 to 4 months. And he says that he wants to keep fighting and he doesn't know his future and he's trying to take it day by day. If it was up to him, he would be stomping people's heads in next week. He'd be doing his thing, but unfortunately it's not all up to him. So he's saying that he's monitoring the situation and they're taking it day by day. And then before he gets a chance to finish what he's talking about, Gunther comes out. And I was quite shocked by this. I was like, why is Gunther here? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. And so Gunther comes out with the rest of Imperium, and Gunther's like, how about you not focus on those two back there, and you start focusing on me. You know, we have been avoiding each other. We've missed each other a few times on the main roster, haven't had a chance to truly step in the ring with each other. And he said, I want to have an opportunity to let you know what I think about you. Mentions that Gunther thinks that Seth Rollins is a workhorse champion, and every single week he comes out and he works on the championship and he defends it consistently, and he said that he is proud of him. You know, you remind me a lot of myself, and the thought of you potentially having to miss WrestleMania makes me quite sad. And Seth Rollins responds to Gunther and says, well, you basically should have let me finish speaking before you guys came out and rudely interrupted me. He said he doesn't give a damn and that he wants to keep his promise and he wants to take the title into WrestleMania, and he wants to do everything he can to take the title leaving WrestleMania as well. So he wants to walk in as champion and walk out as champion as well too. And Gunther seems quite shocked by this answer, and he goes, I'm happy to hear that. I definitely do admire that, and, I would do the exact same thing as well, too. And he says that he wants to go ahead and win the Royal Rumble and wants to go ahead and choose Seth Rollins to wrestle at WrestleMania for that World Heavyweight Championship. He says, if I do, I am going to target all of you. That is not 100% because I will become the World Heavyweight Champion. And Seth takes his claims and says, look, I appreciate it honestly, but you have to remember who you are going after. Obviously, Seth Rollins and all his accolades, you've got to remember how strong of a wrestler he is. And Gunther throws his microphone on the ground and says, you have to remember who's coming after you as well too. And then we see a moment where Imperium is standing outside of the ring and the New Day jump the barricades and start brawling with them, which sets up a match between the two tag teams after the commercial break. After the commercial break, we get the tag match between New Day and Imperium. Now, this has all stemmed from different incidences with different members of the New Day being targeted by Imperium. So straight away from the very beginning, Giovanni Vinci is back in the match. He's obviously well recovered and rested after his concussion. So he's looking very strong in this match. And then we end up seeing that the New Day end up double teaming Giovanni Vinci, and he hits a really nice crossbody and club blow combo as well, which was really cool to see. I do think Giovanni Vinci has one of the best crossbodies in the industry. Like, it's just so clean and precise every time he does it. It's really great. Then we end up seeing Ludwig come in and he's just kicking everybody, hitting everybody. He's in that second gear already. Then we see Xavier Woods hits a really nice step up in Seguri. Xavier Woods and Giovanni Vinci exchanging blows, and then we see Kofi coming in and he is just running on all cylinders as well. And Xavier Woods ends up throwing Ludwig Kaiser into the barricade, and I don't think the teams realise, but this actually causes a double count out. I don't think they're paying much attention to the referee. They're just too busy trying to get their revenge on each other. And then it pretty much just creates an all-out brawl. It goes into the crowd as well too, and I feel as though they are really setting this up so that they can have the full team of Imperium going up against the full group of New Day, because right now Imperium is 3 and New Day is 2. I do know somebody that could help out with the numbers game in terms of New Day, so I guess we just have to see how this goes, but I'm really enjoying the intensity that WWE is putting into the character of Ludwig Kaiser. I feel as though it takes him from this crony henchman to someone that you could actually consider as like an intercontinental champion as well too. He definitely is really strong in the ring, and Giovanni Vinci is definitely overlooked too and underutilized, so I'd like to see them both get more time this year. So we had a couple of backstage segments, so let's quickly smash those out. So we had a hype video going for Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest. They will be having a match tonight. Now obviously this has been built from their some form of alliance from Survivor Series all the way up to the turmoil that's been happening since Survivor Series, culminating in the match that will be taking place as the main event tonight. The Judgment Day is in their clubhouse and they are watching the TV. They're watching that hype package, and Rhea goes ahead and mentions that Damian Priest wants to go and fight everybody, and she said that, I've been in Adam Pearce's office and he actually did mention that you guys, so Judgment Day, Finn Balor and Damian Priest, are going to be representing the Judgment Day and are going to be defending the tag team championships against DIY next week. Drew McIntyre realistically should be the least of your worries right now, Priest. And Priest gets quite hot-headed. He goes, I'm not trying to fight everybody. I will handle Drew tonight. He gets quite hot at Rhea as well too, and he follows on by saying that, I'm not the one that's walking around with a massive ego and a big head just because I'm the new cover star of the new 2K game. And everyone starts looking and is just really confused if they want to chime in or not. And Damien's like, you need to stop going into Adam Pearce's office and stop making these matches. It's just not working. She says, I've got a big head. She says DIY should have been dealt with a long time ago and that she's very disappointed that it's taking them this long. Whilst this is happening, Finn Balor is egging her on. He's copying what she's saying and she's not happy with it. She turns around and she's like, is something funny to you, Finn? And Finn's like, no, nothing's funny. Rhea mentions that the game plan for tonight is that Damian Priest is going to be taking care of Drew McIntyre by himself, but she wants to see Finn Balor ringside for Dominic Mysterio's match with JD McDonough, and she wants to see his vicious side come back out again. Jackie Redmond is backstage and she's catching up with Ivy Nile before her match against Valhalla tonight. She has Maxine Dupree with her, and she says that, you know, Valhalla's not ready for Ivy Nile. It's not really much to this segment. She's kind of just, you know, saying a few things before she goes out. And we get into this match, and I'm not going to lie to you, this match is very short. I'm a little bit disappointed that Ivy Nile didn't really get an opportunity to show herself here. And there was a really stupid moment as well, too, where I just saw Nikki Cross was just walking along the entrance ramp. Like, why? I just don't understand. I don't understand why she's still looming around. I don't get why she's still with the company. But anyway, I guess I don't make creative decisions. I just don't know what she's up to. I also kind of don't really care. You could leave her off my screen for a couple of weeks and I wouldn't really notice. But anyway, from the very beginning of this match, Ivy Nile is in charge, but then we end up seeing Valhalla attacking Ivy Nile outside of the ring, and then Ivy strikes back. Valhalla hits a really nice headbutt, and then we see Ivy walking the ropes and hitting a bulldog finisher for her to come away with the win. As I said, the match was very short, not really much to talk about here. We cut backstage and we see that the New Day is recovering backstage after their beatdown against Imperium. Jey Uso comes in and starts hyping the boys up, and Jackie Redmond asks about Imperium, and the boys from New Day are basically saying that, you know, no one takes us seriously because we come out with unicorn hats and pancakes and everything, and, you know, no one really takes us seriously these days. And Kofi goes ahead and challenges Gunther for the IC title next week, which I really enjoyed seeing that call out. I enjoyed seeing that fire come in from Kofi Kingston. I feel like it's been a while since we've seen him in the IC title picture, and I definitely think he'll put on a banger of a match. Cut to the ring, Nia Jax is making her way out to cut a promo, and she hops into the ring and she said that the first time that she ever met with Rhea Ripley, she squashed her, and the first match that she ever had with Becky Lynch, she also squashed her. Jax complains about the segment that Rhea and Becky had last week and says that neither of them can actually beat her, and that she is going to kill everyone's dreams by obviously winning the Royal Rumble. And then Becky Lynch comes out and Becky calls Nia Jax a dope, which I thought was quite funny. She said that, you know, you're new to talk, and then she said, you know, at the Royal Rumble, people are going to target you. She said, you know, the locker room can agree on one thing, and that's the fact that we don't like you. You've probably injured half of them as well too, and that she said she is going to win the Royal Rumble match for a second time, and that she is going to enjoy watching Nia lose. Now, this was very interesting. I wasn't expecting this. We saw Bayley come out. You know, Bayley is going after Rhea Ripley if she wins the Royal Rumble. So it's quite interesting to see her pop out here. And she said that both of you guys are going to lose. And she said that she's been looking for Rhea, but it's nice that there's a wee little bit of a reunion going on here with the three of them. And she says she wants to make one thing clear, and that she is going to win the Royal Rumble, and all three of them basically just start brawling in the ring. And then there's a moment where we end up seeing Nia Jax hitting a leg drop onto Bayley. So I was quite sad that Bayley got the short end of the stick, but I'm really hoping it means that she's going to do well in the Rumble this week. We then end up cutting backstage to a few more backstage video segments, so let's quickly go through those as well. So Royal Rumble, they've started to do Royal Rumble by the numbers promos, so it's like a video segment where they're talking about all the different years and all the different statistics to do with the Royal Rumble. This is segment 1 out of 2. There is another one later on in the evening as well too. Then we end up seeing Becky Lynch is walking backstage after her encounter with Nia and Bayley, and she's looking quite sad, and we end up seeing both her and Rhea meeting backstage again, so that's them also teasing that match later on down the line. End up cutting back to the ring where we get the match between Dominic Mysterio and The Miz. So straight away from the very beginning, Miz is in charge and he's hitting some really nice deep arm drags onto Dominic Mysterio. Dom ends up throwing The Miz outside of the ring, and then we see him flying through the ropes. So we end up seeing Dominic Mysterio is on the attack, but then The Miz ends up kneeing Dominic and hits a running clothesline. After the commercial break, Miz ends up building a lot of momentum, and then the Judgment Day end up distracting the Miz quite a few times. Miz ends up doing a crossbody as well too. Then we end up seeing I think they're the it kicks, but I know them as the yes kicks, so it does the yes kicks, which is what I've got written down. The Judgment Day is coming back in and distracting the Miz again. Dominic Mysterio taking advantage of this, and then Finn Balor starts beating down on the Miz after the match. So Dominic Mysterio gets the sneaky win because of Judgment Day's distractions. So Finn Balor is beating down on the Miz, and we end up seeing DIY make the save. Now, if you don't know your NXT history, you won't understand why this is important, but it's very important, I'll tell you that. So I'm really looking forward to that tag match between DIY and Judgment Day next week. I think it's going to be really good. Jackie Redmond is backstage and she is catching up with Damian Priest before his match later on in the evening, and he is saying that he is just going to beat down Drew McIntyre and that Drew McIntyre is going to receive the punishment that he should have received a long time ago. Bronson Reed, and he mentions that, you know, him and Jey Uso's paths are going to cross and that they are having a match next week, so it's Jey Uso going up against Bronson Reed. To be honest, I'm quite excited for this match. I feel like Bronson Reed really needs to get a spotlight this year because he's got a lot of untapped potential that I don't think a lot of people are aware of what he can do. Once he gets the opportunity, I feel as though he is just going to shine on the main roster. We had the match between Chad Gable and Ivar. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, this match was quite short as well too, but it definitely exceeded my expectations in terms of intensity and athleticism. So straight away from the very beginning, Chad Gable's off to a hot start and we end up seeing Ivar hitting a spinning slam on Chad as well. Then we end up seeing a really nice swinging neck breaker coming in from Chad Gable. Ivar ends up splashing Chad and Chad hits Ivar with a superplex. We see a sit out powerbomb by Ivar, which is then followed up by a dragon screw by Chad Gable. Ivar hits a leg drop and then we see Chad Gable put Ivar into an ankle lock, which doesn't really work. Ivar hits a moonsault, Chad hits 2 suplexes, and then Ivar hits the doomsault to come away with the win. I mean, Chad Gable does what he does best. He puts on a great performance, but I don't really like Ivar very much, so I don't know, I just don't really appreciate him. You see both Cody Rhodes and CM Punk are making their way out to the ring to have their face-to-face conversation, which I'm not going to lie to you, was quite intense. So, for all of those who don't know, Cody Rhodes and CM Punk used to be in WWE together back in the day. They also used to be in AEW as well too, so I feel as though this is the first time they've actually seen each other and encountered each other since CM Punk returned at Survivor Series War Games last year. I wrote down that these two could both be considered Mania main eventers because they literally scream this year's WrestleMania main eventers to me. Anyway, so they both make their way out to the ring and Punk's like, how about we just enjoy this moment first, because the crowd was really behind the fact that they were both in the ring together. And he mentions that, you know, their paths to get here have been different and he hopes that they are still friends come Sunday. So Cody asks CM Punk, you know, what do you want to talk about? And Punk responds with your dad. And he said, you know, I'll set the scene for you here. It's 2007 and, you know, I get a call from your dad and he said that he is going to be sending you to OVW to begin your training. And he wants me to keep an eye on you. And, you know, when the American Dream asks you to do a favor, you don't say no. You absolutely say yes. And he said that you caused no trouble that you couldn't talk yourself out of. And, you know, you didn't grasp onto any of the vices that a lot of people would have grasped onto at the time, little habits and stuff that they shouldn't really be doing to get themselves through. On Saturday, it really sucks to say this, but unfortunately I'm going to have to break that promise that I made to your dad, because if our paths cross within that match, I'm going to be looking for you and I'm going to do what it takes to win the Royal Rumble and main event WrestleMania. Cody responds to Punk and he says, well, you're not alone in feeling that way. Every time people see me, they see Dusty. He says that everything is not meant to be in shadow and that there is meant to be light, and I want to be my own man. He said that he knows that he is a Nepo hire, but CM Punk treated me like a peer. And he mentioned that it's bittersweet because at the Royal Rumble there are no friends. And CM Punk's like, well, what about on Sunday morning? You know, like, I can separate business from personal, and to be honest, I wasn't born into the business. I'm not the son of Dusty Rhodes. He said, I didn't grow up in the business. My father is not Dusty Rhodes. You know, you grew up in it, and I don't have a famous dad. And he said, you know, I saw you, Cody, and I had to scratch and claw my way, and I saw how much of a burden that last name was for you, but you've done it, and we've got two completely different paths, but we have one goal here. And, you know, my dad wasn't famous. He was an electrician, a blue collar, you know, we came from a blue collar family, and he mentions that he feels as though he's more of the American dream than Cody could ever be. Cody's like, all right, so you want to talk about this. Let's go ahead and talk about that pipe bomb promo. You sat over there and talked about the formula for the revolution within wrestling, and I was inspired by that. He said that you left. You didn't just pass the torch to anyone, you dropped the torch. But if anything, I picked it up. I did it all. And you could call me CM Punk more than yourself. And Punk's like, oh. And he takes his hoodie off and he's like, you know, it's getting a little bit hot in here, so let me go through the road to WrestleMania with you, CM Punk style. Congrats on the cover of 2K, by the way. He's talking about how Cody Rhodes is, you know, getting to the end of a race and he's about to cross that finish line. But if anything, he's going to realize that there's an even bigger star that is going to be taking it all away, and that is going to be him. Cody says, well, you know, you need to be looking out for me, you know. The American dream was my best friend, and he talks about courage and he talks about having to move forward, and if that means having to move and go through you, and they're both just like staring at each other like this at the end of it, and it was just, I really enjoyed the promo. I feel like both Punk and Cody can just talk their heads off, and it was really captivating. As I say, I feel as though it's going to be Punk that wins the Rumble and then Cody wins the Chamber. But nonetheless, I'm excited for this. I feel as though they have really done a really great job this year at setting up the Royal Rumble matches, and I am so excited. We had a women's tag team match, so we had Indi Hartwell and Candice LeRae taking on Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler. Again, this match was quite short, but I guess they did this because they had a lot to pack in terms of Royal Rumble footage, so let's get into it. So straight away, Shayna is on the attack of Candice LeRae, and then we end up seeing Candice hitting some really nice deep arm drags. Indi ends up beating down on Zoe, and Indi and Candice both end up double teaming the other team as well too. Candice is on fire and she ends up tackling both Zoe and Shayna. Then we see Zoe hit the Z360 to come away with the win. So Zoe and Shayna have now won a contenders spot at some point for the women's tag team titles. So we then see the tag champs, which is Kaden Carter and Katana Chance, come in to go ahead and like hold their belts up and be like, if this is what you're striving for, this is where you're going to get it. And we see Damage Control come in and start beating down on the champions. Now, Michael Cole did remind us that they will actually be wrestling this Friday on SmackDown. So it'll be Kaden and Katana going up against the Kabuki Warriors because they have that number one contendership spot. I'm really excited for this match. I want to see the Kabuki Warriors as tag team champions again because I don't know, women's wrestling just feels right when they're the champs. Jackie Redmond is backstage and she's catching up with Drew McIntyre. Before she gets into asking about Damian Priest, she asks about Cody Rhodes and Punk and is like, hey, do you have anything to kind of say about what they just said out to each other in the ring? And Drew's like, no, I've pretty much said everything I need to say. And Drew starts talking about how, you know, back in 2020, he had to be a hero for everybody, and obviously was talking about the Thunderdome and how hard it was for a lot of people, and he seems quite jaded over it as well. And then he mentions that, you know, Damian Priest is not ready for Drew McIntyre. Then we see Damage Controllers walking backstage, obviously celebrating after beating down on the women's tag team champions. Guys, I'm going to catch a case for talking about Natalya 2 weeks in a row because what the actual like, what the like, are you actually serious? Why? So Tegan and Natalya, which they are not a convincing tag team for me at all. They come in and they start arguing with Damage Control, being like, what are you doing here? And Dakota Kai's like, why do you even care? Like, why are you here? Like, why do you care? And then Adam Pearce comes in and starts to like split up the situation, and he gets mad because obviously, you know, Bayley and Damage Control were there to obviously talk about the Royal Rumble. They weren't there to go ahead and start any fights. Dakota Kai's like, if you've got any problems, you can go ahead and talk to Nick Aldis about it. And then Adam Pearce turns around and he ends up seeing that Jinder, Veer and Sangha are there, and they all just go ahead and have a meeting. They go ahead and walk away for it. Then after this, we get part 2 of the Royal Rumble by the Numbers video segment, and they did something really cool at the end. They actually showed the match graphic for the Royal Rumble matches. So I'm going to share something really awesome with you guys. Only 7 people in the men's Royal Rumble have been announced out of 30. So we're going to be getting 23 random contestants, which I'm like so excited about because you guys know how I feel about the Royal Rumble contenders being announced. Like, I just don't like when too many of them are announced because it just makes it like the surprise is just gone for me. So the men has 7 that are, you know, have declared and said they're going to be a part of the Rumble, and the women have 4, which means there's 26 surprise contenders we don't know because obviously they haven't made themselves declared or they haven't qualified or anything like that. But I think we're going to be in for a wild ride this weekend, and I'm so excited. We finally make our way to the main event, which is Damian Priest taking on Drew McIntyre. Now, straight away, Drew McIntyre is in control, and Damian then starts taking control, and it very much just goes back and forth between the two of them. It's just like 2 big, meaty men slapping meat. I feel as though whenever Damian and Drew get in the ring together, they have really good chemistry together. So we end up seeing Damian Priest ends up running into a belly-to-belly, and then Priest ends up raking the eyes of Drew McIntyre. Priest ends up hitting a broken arrow onto Drew McIntyre on the commentary table. Then we go to commercial break. After that, we see Damian Priest is back in control, and we end up seeing Drew McIntyre clotheslining Damian Priest as well too. There's a moment where Drew McIntyre's setting up the Claymore and then Priest ends up skipping it, so he misses it. A spinebuster jackknife combo coming in from Drew McIntyre as well too. There's a moment where R-Truth comes in because he obviously encountered with Damian Priest earlier on in the night, and he's like, hey, like, is now a good time? Do you want me to come help you? And he's like, no, like, go away, like, I don't need your help right now, I'm really busy. And we end up seeing Drew McIntyre hit a Future Shock DDT onto Damian Priest. Truth's just trying to find out the combination for the Money in the Bank briefcase because he wants to put Damian's cut of the money from the merchandise into the suitcase, but this ends up causing a distraction for Damian Priest. Now, not in a good way. Obviously, Damian Priest ends up getting taken advantage of. So there's a moment where a South of Heaven is hit by Damian Priest, and then Truth distracts the ref, which that would have been a 3 count, but because the ref was distracted, he couldn't count on the move. Then we end up seeing Drew McIntyre hit a Claymore to come away with the win, and then we ended up seeing Damian Priest get really upset at R-Truth. So I don't know if Truth is still in the Judgment Day. I think Drew McIntyre winning was the right choice. I don't think Damian Priest winning would have helped Drew McIntyre at all. Character-wise, yes, it would have, but in terms of trajectory and progression going into the Royal Rumble, I don't really think it would have helped. So Drew McIntyre coming away with the win was great. I just am interested to see where it's going to take Judgment Day moving forward. And with that, those are my thoughts for Monday Night Raw this week. If you guys stuck around till the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Turn on the bell notification so you don't miss any of our uploads when we post on here. Make sure you go ahead and check out the description down below for all of our personal social medias, as well as where you'll find Outcasted on other platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. I think they call it X now, but I will still call it Twitter to this day. You've got an NXT review coming in from Reese this week, and then the podcast this week we were going to be talking about our Royal Rumble predictions with a surprise guest. I'm not going to drop who it is yet because, to be honest, I don't actually know who we've got, and I think they're keeping it a surprise from me because otherwise I'll find a way to ruin it. So great job keeping it a surprise, guys. Then you've got your SmackDown review coming in, and there will potentially be a Royal Rumble review coming in from myself after Royal Rumble. I think we're also planning on doing a watch along as well, so me and G might be here on the channel doing a watch along for Rumble. We will make sure to confirm that on the podcast because I don't know if we're too sure yet. But anyway, I will catch you guys in the podcast. I hope you guys have a really good rest of your day, night, whatever time it is. As I say, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate your support on these videos, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.